So you've got all of your information, you've got the address, you've got your pictures, and you've got a couple paragraphs of the condition of the property. You're going to put all of that in a Google Sheet. Now, I'll link to a version that I've actually used so you can see like the fields we had to communicate. But you can't, like, a lot of you will like request to edit this document. You can't do that. You're going to have to click File, make a copy, then rename it so that it's your own, and obviously clear out any data that I have in there. All you're going to do is then click Share in the top right on that document and add the email for your buyer. Now, if you have a couple buyers, you're going to want to have a few of these. You don't want them all on one document. I wouldn't even tell them, hey, I've got other options if you don't pan out. It's really none of their business. But that way, different people buy on different margins. Some guy might want to make $100,000 a deal and you're never going to find anything he likes. Somebody else might only want to make $5,000 and you might be able to sell them a ton of stuff. So you're going to want to have like one sheet per buyer, and ideally you've got 3 or 4. That way you can kind of get a little bit of variety. But it's really straightforward. We're filling out that Google Sheet, sharing it with them. If we don't hear back from them pretty quickly, we're going to shoot them a text or an email. Hey, got a new one for you to look at. Once they look at it and say, hey, this is roughly where I want to be, it's then on you to call your seller. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I talked to my business partner on the property. We're going to be coming in at X. Now, I'll link to some content we've done on like how we make our offers, but we're not getting into like the condition of property, the cost of repairs, the kind of profit we're making. We're just telling them based off the property, the amount of money it's going to cost our contractors, kind of this is where we're coming in at. Anytime you can get a number out of them first, like that's golden. That way they don't feel like you're like lowballing them or gut shotting them or whatever. But remember what we talked about earlier. If your buyer's at $200, you want to build in a minimum of $8,000 for yourself. So the most you want to offer, we call that your MAO, max allowable offer, is right at like $192,000. But you don't want to come out the gate with necessarily your best offer. You want to come out of the gate a couple $1,000s below that. That way you have room to follow up. So you make somebody an offer and they say, oh, no, that's too low. That's not going to work for me. Great. Did you have a counter in mind? Is there a number that would work for you? Just basic negotiation at this point. You don't want to really raise your offer on that initial call, because if you're like, yeah, I can do 150 and they say no, and you're like, what about 192? They're like, what happens if I say no again? You're going to come up another 30 grand. So you do want to give yourself room to come up, call it, hey, let me sharpen my pencil, see if I can make that work. Normally what I see, we'll come up a grand or two, they come down 10 or 20. We come up a grand or two, they come down 10 or 20. Ideally, we end up meeting. This is where kind of persistence comes in. It's not necessarily going to happen immediately. Even if you're like a total badass at negotiations and closing, you're only going to close like 15 to 25% of your appointments. If you kind of suck or you're a newbie like I was, it might close at like 10%. So you're going to have to meet with 10 people, get told no 9 times to get one yes. And it might be a little bit of back and forth with those people. I wasn't sure if I was going to add this or not, but I'm somebody who I grew up very much like no means no. And I really struggled with this early on of like, I would give them my max right out the gate. If they couldn't do it, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, we can't do business. Have a nice day. And boom, I'd be on to the next one. But that's not how life works. So you've got to be comfortable getting told no and pushing a little bit further. Yeah, hey, I'm at 185,000. Oh gosh, that's way too low. If you just like, oh, okay, well, have a nice day, you're gonna miss out a ton. What you want to do instead, the phrase I like to use is see what you can get away with. Just try to push a little bit further beyond your comfort zone every single time. Okay, well, 185 doesn't work for you. It sounds like you have another number in mind. What would your counter be? Oh, well, no, we're just too low. I don't even think we can do business. If you're weak, you might be like, okay, have a nice day. Instead, you might be like, well, I might have some other options. I'd have to definitely go back to my contractors, see if I can get them down on price at all. But what were you thinking? Try me, right? It's that see what you can get away with. Always push it just a little bit further. And you'll be surprised. You'll have people that you're like, hey, I'm here. They say no. You ask what they have in mind and you can do business together. You don't know if you don't ask.